ceramic student. Today I'm going to show you how to make a spout on the wheel. Here I've got a small little piece of centered clay. Centering it is very important when you're making a spout because we're going to use a new skill set, or one that we've used before but in a different way. And if your clay is not centered, it gets really tricky to make a good spout. So first, we're going to take our clay and we need to open it up just like we normally would. But I prefer, this is kind of the traditional shape that we have when we center. It kind of is that, block. I want to turn my clay into a little bit more of a triangular shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put both hands on the sides, make sure you got water, and I'm going to collapse them together and just try and hold nice and steady, try to not move, and then slowly release it. And we'll get something that looks a little bit more like a triangle. Okay, hold that for a second and then slowly release. Now, we're going to open it up just like normal. So we're going to take our thumb and we're going to press down. Now because we're making a spout, we actually could go all the way down. You don't have to, but you could, because a spout has to be hollow all the way through. We don't need a base. Alright? And with a spout, what's different than a cylinder is we do want to keep it pretty narrow. So I'm not really going to widen it out at all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab on with my fingertips and I'm going to do a fingertip pull. I'm going to squeeze and rise straight up. So I'm going to give it a little teeny pull. I'm going to rise up, hold at the top, let go sideways. I'm going to reach down to the bottom again. I'm going to grab onto the clay. I'm going to rise up nice and slow. And it looks like a little tiny cylinder. The top has a little bit of a wobble. So I'm going to take my needle tool and just cut off some of that wobbly clay at the very top. Now as far as the spout goes, it's your decision as the artist how long the spout is. But it does need to be more narrow than this. So one of the skills that we've learned before we're going to use again, which is called collaring, which is when we take the clay and we make it become more narrow. So you're going to take your fingers, you're going to make a W with your fingers. You're going to start towards the bottom of your spout. You're going to give it a gentle press equally from the four fingers and you're going to rise up slowly. You don't have to really increase pressure. You're just going to maintain. We're going to hold it and we're going to release it sideways. The top got a little more narrow. Okay, we're going to go back down to the bottom. We're going to squeeze in and rise up and hold and release. And you can see that the spout already, with just two motions of collaring, has gotten taller and skinnier. Now this will take a little bit of practice. The first time you try and make a spout, you're probably going to break it, you're probably going to tear it. So I get some clay on the wheel and center it and just consider it practice to try and get the feel of things. I'm going to do this one more time. Go up. Now, when we collar our clay usually does get thicker, so I like to try and leave enough space that I can get my pinky in to do a little pull with my pinky, just in case there's extra. So I'm pushing with my pinky and my thumb. It's a little one-handed pull. Pull it up, hold and release, and now I'm going to go back and collar this. I can take my foot off the gas. It doesn't have to go full speed. It's probably sometimes going to get wobbly above your fingers. Just try and hold steady and then gently release sideways. Any wobble at the top that you can't get rid of, you can just cut off. So I'm going to call that spout good enough. Again, you could sit and play with it and try and get something longer and more dramatic. Now the question is, well, what do I do with this? It doesn't really look like something that I could attach to a container like this. So the next step is to take a wire tool, like so, and you've got to figure out how long you want your spout to be, okay? So I'm going to go to right about here, And then instead of cutting straight across, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cut down at a 45-degree angle, and you'll see why in just a second. So I'm going to go right here, I'm going to cut down at a 45-degree angle, like so. Now the advantage to that is after I let my spout dry, if I cut it at an angle, when it attaches, it'll naturally be pointing up, like a spout should. If I cut it perfectly flat, the spout will stick straight out, and I'll have to do some carving to make it attach a little better. Now for your clay, you definitely want to let this get leather hard. If this were mine, I would place it on a board and I would just let it sit for a while. You don't want to attach it when it is fresh, soft clay. I'm just going to show you what to do because I'm not too worried about keeping this particular spout. If this were my project that I wanted to attach it to, the first thing that I would do is I would find out where do I want it to go. So I could decide, you don't want it to be at the very top because that's going to be awkward to pour. You don't want it to be at the very bottom. That's going to be so somewhere in the middle. You also want to think about how to shape it. What type of shape are you looking for? So I'm going to say that looks good. Now it's stuck to the side because my clay is fresh and gooey, but we would need to score and slip this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle tool and I'm going to mark out where I want my spout to go, like so. Then I'm going to separate my clay from the spout. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remember there's got to be an opening here if I'm going to pour liquid. So I'm going to draw a circle that's generously, about or slightly larger than the opening of the spout. And then I need to score and slip. You've got to score and slip this on really well. If you don't score and slip it, then it will not attach, okay? So I'm going to score all the way around here, and then I'm going to grab my little spout that I made, and I'm going to score inside of here. If the opening in here was really narrow when it was leather hard, you could carve it out a little and make it slightly wider, okay? Now the last thing I got to remember is that I have to open this up. If I want to be able to pour liquid from my teapot, then I have to have a way to do that. What I don't want you to do, I don't want you just to cut a giant hole in the middle. When students do that, sometimes they get a little, they make it too large and the liquid pours out too quickly. So what I prefer is I say turn this area into a strainer. So take your needle tool and open up like 2 or 3 holes. They don't have to be perfect, but we're just going to create a couple of openings like this. And then you can clean them out. You can make sure from the inside and the outside that there is a clear path for your liquid. Then you put a little bit of water in between the areas that you have scored. A little bit of water in here. And now we're going to press this together and start to attach. Start to smooth. Obviously mine's really wet and gooey right now. You'd be doing this when everything was leather hard, but that's the basics of how to throw it and how to attach it. Other things are kind of your creative decision, your creative choice. Sometimes people will kind of cut off the top of this or shape their spout. You can hand build a spout out of slabs. You can take a little bit of clay and use your handle of your needle tool to create an opening. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but you want to make sure once again that you scored and slipped it on well and that you have a nice controlled path like a strainer for your liquid to run through, and hopefully you'll have a great teapot when it's all said and done.